Deep in the high desert of northeastern Utah lies a patch of land that has become the epicenter of one of the greatest mysteries of our time. The locals call it Skinwalker Ranch. To outsiders, it looks like any other stretch of rugged ranch land, rolling pastures, barbed wire fences, and the shadow of the Uinta Mountains stretching across the horizon. But beneath this ordinary surface is a story unlike any other. A story filled with strange lights, impossible creatures, vanishing cattle, government investigations, and whispered tales of portals to other worlds. Skinwalker Ranch is not just a location, it's a legend. For centuries, the ground has been feared, fought over, and avoided. From Native American shamans to government scientists, from ranching families to modern-day television crews, each generation that has set foot on this land has reported something beyond explanation. Some say the ranch is cursed. Others believe it's a testing ground for alien technology. And still others insist that it is a thin place where the veil between our reality and another bends until the impossible becomes possible. Whatever the truth may be, Skinwalker Ranch remains one of the most investigated and most terrifying pieces of real estate in the world. To understand why this land became such a focal point of mystery, we need to picture it. The Uinta Basin is a remote, isolated region in northeastern Utah. The summers are blistering hot, the winters brutal and long. The landscape itself is haunting. Flat, arid plains stretch out into a horizon broken by rugged mountains and deep canyons. It is a place of silence, solitude, and endless sky. From above, the ranch is roughly 500 acres of fenced property, bordered by dirt roads and scrubland. There's a main homestead, a few barns, and cattle pastures. By day, it appears mundane, but at night, it transforms. The basin skies come alive with stars, and with them, something else. Lights that move against the wind, shapes that defy physics, objects that appear and vanish in an instant. Locals have a saying, if you live in the Uinta Basin long enough, you'll see something you can't explain. But what gives this ranch its chilling name? The word skinwalker comes from Navajo legend, describing a type of witch or shaman with the ability to shapeshift into animals. These beings were said to be malevolent, using dark magic to stalk, terrorize, and even kill. For the Navajo, even speaking the word was taboo. The ranch sits on land once contested between the Navajo and the Ute tribes. Many believe that during violent conflicts, the Navajo cursed the ground, unleashing the skinwalker spirit upon it. Over time, the stories grew. Shape-shifting wolves, shadowy figures, glowing eyes in the darkness, all of them became tied to this place. Whether the curse is real or not, the name stuck, and with it came a legacy of fear. Before the modern ranch owners, before the media frenzy, and before the government set its sights on this location, there were stories. Oral histories passed down through tribal elders, newspaper clippings reporting strange objects in the sky as far back as the 1950s, homesteaders describing cattle found mutilated in ways too precise for predators, and lights that danced above their pastures at night. By the time the Gorman family purchased the property in the 1990s, the reputation of Skinwalker Ranch was already infamous. But what they experienced during their short stay would catapult the ranch into international headlines and transform it from a local legend into a paranormal landmark. Unlike most paranormal hotspots, which tend to focus on a single category of the unexplained, say UFOs in Roswell or cryptids in Loch Ness, Skinwalker Ranch has them all. UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, poltergeist activity, portals, cryptid creatures, radiation anomalies, shadow people. It is as if the ranch is a stage upon which every known paranormal phenomenon performs. This convergence of strangeness has baffled investigators for decades. Scientists arrive expecting to study one anomaly only to encounter something entirely different. Imagine standing in a field under the Utah night sky. You see a glowing orb drifting just above the treetops. As you watch, it changes shape, then splits into two before vanishing into nothing. You rush to investigate, only to hear your cattle in distress. Moments later, you find one of them dead, its body surgically mutilated in ways no predator could achieve, yet with no blood spilled onto the ground. Suddenly, from the tree line, a pair of glowing red eyes appear, larger than any wolf, unblinking, unafraid. This is the reality of Skinwalker Ranch. Not one mystery, not one phenomenon, but a tapestry of the inexplicable.
Skeptics often dismiss claims of the paranormal, but what makes Skinwalker Ranch different is the level of serious investigation it has attracted. Multi-millionaire aerospace mogul Robert Bigelow bought the ranch in the 1990s, deploying teams of scientists to study the phenomena. Later, even the United States government funneled millions into research connected to the property under programs like ATIP and BASS. When the Pentagon funds research into cattle mutilations, glowing orbs, and interdimensional portals, people take notice. Yet despite decades of study, one thing is clear: the phenomena never perform on command. Instruments fail, cameras malfunction, data is incomplete. It's as if the phenomenon itself is aware of being watched and refuses to be captured. Today, Skinwalker Ranch is owned by Brandon Fugel, a Utah real estate mogul who opened the doors to a new wave of public investigation. Through televised documentaries and cutting-edge scientific studies, the ranch has never been under closer scrutiny, and yet the mystery only deepens. Radiation spikes appear out of nowhere, drones lose GPS mid-flight, massive objects seem to materialize underground on radar scans, and the phenomena that terrorized ranchers for decades still persist, as if mocking humanity's attempts to explain them. At its core, Skinwalker Ranch is more than a curiosity. It's a challenge. It forces us to question the boundaries of reality. If UFOs are real, why here? If cryptids walk among us, why this land? If portals to other dimensions exist, why open in the Uinta Basin? Some say the ranch is a hoax, amplified by those who profit from its legend. Others say it's the single greatest paranormal case study of all time. Wherever the truth lies, one fact remains undeniable: there is something happening at Skinwalker Ranch that cannot be explained away. In this documentary, we will trace the story of Skinwalker Ranch from its ancient origins to its modern investigations. We will examine the legends of the Navajo Skinwalker. We will step into the shoes of the ranchers who lived in fear. We will follow the scientists who tried and failed to measure the unmeasurable. And we will uncover how a quiet ranch in Utah became tied to secret government programs studying UFOs and the unknown. So settle in. What you are about to hear is not just a history of a location. It is a journey into the heart of the unexplained. A place where reality bends. A place where nightmares walk. A place known to the world as Skinwalker Ranch.
To understand Skinwalker Ranch, We have to go back long before fences, barns, or even settlers came to the Uinta Basin. Long before cattle roamed the pastures. Long before the name Skinwalker was whispered with fear. The story begins with the land itself, a land steeped in conflict, legend, and a curse that some say still lingers to this day. The Uinta Basin is unlike much of Utah. Rugged mountains encircle a broad desert valley, with cliffs and mesas carved by ancient rivers. To many native peoples, the basin was not simply remote, it was forbidden. Oral histories describe the basin as a land of power, where spirits moved more freely, and where strange events unfolded that even the elders could not explain. The Navajo and Ute tribes both held this region in their cultural memory, but their relationship with it, and with each other, was complex and often violent. Out of this tension was born one of the most enduring legends connected to Skinwalker Ranch. The Ute people had lived in the Uinta Basin for centuries. Skilled hunters, horsemen, and traders, they adapted well to the harsh climate. But during the mid-1800s, the Navajo, who lived further south, came into direct conflict with the Utes. Both tribes raided one another for resources, horses, and, tragically, even people. According to some accounts, the Utes allied with early settlers and even the U.S. military against the Navajo. This betrayal, especially during the brutal period of the Long Walk of the Navajo in the 1860s, left scars that would never fully heal. It is said that in retaliation, Navajo spiritual leaders placed a curse upon the Ute people. They called upon the darkest of powers, the Skinwalker. For the Navajo, a Skinwalker, Yinaldloshi, is not merely a frightening campfire tale. It is one of the most feared beings in their culture. A witch who has chosen to embrace evil. A Skinwalker is said to gain the power to transform into animals, wolves, coyotes, owls, by wearing their skins. But these beings are not simple shapeshifters. They are predators, both physical and spiritual. Legends say they can run faster than cars, leap impossible distances, and invade the minds of their victims. They bring illness, bad fortune, and death. Worst of all, they cannot be killed by conventional means. Bullets, blades, and fire do nothing. Only silver, tradition says, can end their existence.
When the Navajo cursed the Ute, it was said that skinwalkers would stalk the Uinta Basin, haunting the land for generations to come. And so the basin became, in the minds of many, tainted ground, a place where misfortune and terror would follow those who dared to claim it. Even beyond the Skinwalker curse, native traditions often spoke of the Uinta Basin as spiritually dangerous. Some areas were avoided entirely, said to be the path of the spirits. Strange lights were seen in the skies long before settlers ever wrote them down. Shadowy figures appeared along ridgelines. People vanished without explanation. The Ute, who remained in the region after the U.S. government forced them onto reservations, carried forward these warnings. Elders told their young not to wander into certain areas. Hunters spoke of following tracks in the snow only to have them vanish mid-stride, as if the creature had simply disappeared. And whispers of skinwalkers continued to spread. By the time white settlers moved into the basin in the late 1800s, the land was already infamous, but the settlers, often dismissing native beliefs as superstition,
ignored these warnings. They carved out ranches, planted crops, and brought livestock. Many lived without incident, but not all. In the early 20th century, scattered reports began to surface of strange phenomena in the Uinta Basin. Ranchers described cattle vanishing or found dead in bizarre conditions, organs missing with surgical precision but without a drop of blood spilled on the ground. Others spoke of lights, brilliant, glowing orbs that hovered silently in the night sky, darting in ways no lantern or aircraft could. At times, these lights would follow wagons or riders for miles, before suddenly shooting off into the heavens. Local newspapers occasionally picked up these stories, though often couched them in skeptical or mocking tones. Still, the legends persisted. The land seemed restless. One of the strangest aspects of Skinwalker Ranch's history is that the phenomena associated with it cannot be easily categorized. With most paranormal sites, there's a single theme. Loch Ness has its monster. Roswell has its UFO. Gettysburg has its ghosts. But the Uinta Basin has them all. Shape-shifting creatures, phantom lights, UFO sightings, poltergeist-like activity, cattle mutilations, portals, or doorways in the sky. To the native tribes, this made sense. A cursed land would naturally be plagued by every manner of darkness. To the settlers, it was unnerving. And to the scientists who would later investigate, it became maddening. One recurring figure in Ute legend is that of the unnatural wolf. Described as enormous, 3 times the size of any normal wolf and impervious to bullets, this creature matches eerily with later accounts from ranchers in the 1990s. Some believe this figure is none other than a skinwalker in wolf form, forever tied to the basin. Stories of the giant wolf have circulated for generations. Hunters claim to shoot at it point blank, only to see it walk away unharmed. Tracks of massive wolves appeared in snow, only to vanish suddenly, as if the creature had dissolved into thin air. When the Gorman family would later encounter just such a wolf on their property, it was not a new story, it was the continuation of an old one. As the 20th century progressed, the Uinta Basin remained quiet on the surface, but the stories never disappeared. Locals knew the reputation of the land. Some avoided it altogether, whispering that it was skinwalker ground. Others shrugged it off until something happened to them. By the 1970s and 80s, the UFO craze sweeping America had already touched Utah. But in the basin, reports of strange craft weren't new. They were simply the modern face of an ancient mystery. Where one generation saw skinwalkers, another saw aliens. Where one saw curses, another saw technology. The underlying phenomenon remained the same. By the time the Gorman family purchased the property in the 1990s, the land's reputation was a thick shadow looming over it. They may not have believed the legends, but the locals did. They knew the ranch by its ominous name, Skinwalker. What the Gormans would experience there, wolves that couldn't die, cattle that vanished, glowing portals in the night sky, seemed to fulfill the curse in terrifying detail. But whether these events were truly caused by skinwalkers, by extraterrestrial visitors, or by something else entirely, remains the central mystery. So when we speak of Skinwalker Ranch, we are not simply talking about cattle mutilations or UFOs. We are speaking of a land marked by myth, cursed by war, and haunted by beings beyond comprehension. The Navajo say the Skinwalker walks here still. The Ute refused to tread certain paths. And generations later, we are left asking, was the curse real? Or is something far stranger unfolding in the Uinta Basin, something that wears many faces, shifting through our fears and beliefs, just as the Skinwalker itself is said to shift through skins?
Long before the name Skinwalker Ranch became synonymous with UFOs,
portals and government investigations, the land itself was already shrouded in unease. The Uinta Basin, where the ranch sits, has always been an isolated region. In the 1800s, it was considered undesirable land by early American settlers. The soil was poor, the winters were brutal, and the remoteness of the basin made farming and trade nearly impossible. Even the federal government, when relocating Native American tribes, often chose the Uinta Basin precisely because it was so harsh and unforgiving. The Ute tribe, who were forcibly moved into the region, carried with them stories of the land's strangeness. Their elders spoke of curses and shapeshifters. They warned of spirits that haunted the basin and of places one should never tread at night. Many Utes believed that the ground itself had been poisoned by conflict, that during their wars with the Navajo, powerful curses had been unleashed. Whether symbolic or literal, the warnings lingered. To the Utes, this was not land to settle comfortably. It was land to survive. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, ranchers began moving into the area. Homesteads appeared, wooden cabins, barns, and fenced fields carved out of the desert brush. The land that would eventually become Skinwalker Ranch passed through the hands of a handful of families, each trying to wrestle a living out of the unforgiving soil. Most of them did not last. Strange events seemed to follow those who stayed too long. Stories circulated of livestock disappearing without a trace, or found dead in ways no natural predator could accomplish. Strange lights in the night sky were reported even then, often dismissed as lanterns, flares, or tricks of the atmosphere. Yet the ranch earned a quiet reputation as a place where odd things happened. Neighbors would sometimes whisper of giant wolves seen on the property, wolves far larger than any known in Utah, and yet strangely fearless of humans. There were accounts of doors and windows rattling in the middle of the night, though no wind or storm was present. Ranch families often felt watched, even when standing alone in the open fields. Tools went missing. Shadows seemed to move where none should be. And while the ranch changed owners multiple times across the decades, it never seemed to shed its aura of unease. By the mid-20th century, the legend of the Uinta Basin as a UFO hotspot had grown. Newspapers across Utah carried sporadic reports of glowing disks in the sky, of metallic craft darting silently through the night. In 1951, a group of students and a teacher reported seeing a silver saucer hover in broad daylight. In the 1960s, multiple ranchers in the area claimed to have witnessed flying objects that performed impossible maneuvers. These accounts were not yet tied specifically to Skinwalker Ranch, but the region as a whole began to build a reputation as a place where the unusual was almost expected.
It's important to understand that in these early years, there was no media frenzy, no television crews, no scientists setting up shop. There were only locals, ranchers, hunters, and tribal families who lived day to day with the oddness of the basin. For them, these stories were not entertainment. They were warnings. Strange lights might spook the cattle. A wolf too large to be natural might be more than just a predator. Some stayed quiet, fearing ridicule. Others shared their experiences openly, convinced the basin was unlike anywhere else in the country. By the time the land came into the hands of the Gorman family in the 1990s, it already carried with it generations of whispered tales, eerie encounters, and tribal warnings. This wasn't just any ranch. It was a place where people went missing, where animals died under mysterious circumstances, and where the sky seemed to hold secrets just out of reach. The ranch was a puzzle box that no one had yet opened, and the Gormans were about to discover that the stories were not only real, they were just the beginning. In 1994, the property that would come to be known as Skinwalker Ranch was purchased by a cattle ranching family named Gorman. To protect their privacy, their real name was changed in published accounts, but their story became the foundation of the modern legend. For the Gormans, the purchase was meant to be a fresh start, an opportunity to build a thriving cattle business on nearly 500 acres of pasture land in the Uinta Basin. What they encountered instead was a living nightmare. From the very beginning, the family sensed something was wrong. On the day they moved in, they noticed heavy chains bolted to both the inside and outside of the doors, as if the previous owners had been trying to keep something out, or perhaps to keep something in. Windows were reinforced with deadbolts, and large locks hung from cabinets and closets. The strangeness continued as they explored the property. They discovered iron stakes embedded in the ground, seemingly placed to tether large, unknown animals. There were no explanations left behind, only signs that whoever had lived there before had been afraid of something. Within weeks of settling in, the Gormans began to experience the impossible. One of their first encounters involved a wolf. Not an ordinary wolf, but an animal far larger than anything they had ever seen, its shoulders nearly level with the top of their truck window. At first, the wolf seemed tame, even allowing the family to approach and pet it. But the encounter turned terrifying when the wolf suddenly lunged at one of their calves, locking its enormous jaws around the animal's head. In a desperate attempt to save their livestock, Mr. Gorman fired point-blank into the creature. Shot after shot rang out, but the wolf did not flinch. Finally, after multiple high-caliber rounds, the creature released the calf and trotted calmly into the brush, leaving behind only a rancid stench and large tracks that abruptly ended, as if the animal had simply vanished into thin air.
This was only the beginning. Over the months that followed, the family witnessed glowing orbs that hovered in their fields, changing colors and pulsing with a strange energy. Some of these orbs appeared intelligent, darting away when pursued, or deliberately approaching the ranchers as if in mockery. The orbs terrified the Gorman's dogs, driving them into frenzies of barking and fear. On one occasion, the orbs lured the dogs into the brush. Moments later, the family heard agonized yelps. When they investigated, all they found were 3 piles of ash, the remains of their animals, incinerated without fire. Cattle mutilations soon became a devastating reality. The Gormans lost prized animals under circumstances that defied explanation. Calves were found carved open with surgical precision, organs removed, yet no blood spilled onto the ground. Some cattle were discovered missing entirely, their tracks leading into an open field before stopping as if the animal had been lifted straight into the sky.
Others were found dead in broad daylight, their bodies untouched by predators, yet dissected in ways no rancher had ever seen. For a family whose livelihood depended on their herd, these losses were not just terrifying, they were financially devastating. Poltergeist-like activity plagued the homestead. Tools went missing, only to reappear in impossible locations. Heavy equipment was found moved, sometimes hundreds of feet from where it had been left, as if lifted and dropped by invisible hands. Doors slammed shut on their own. Strange voices echoed across the fields, speaking in an unknown language. Shadows moved in their home at night, towering shapes that passed silently through walls. The family grew paranoid, exhausted, and increasingly fearful for their safety. Perhaps most unsettling was the sense of being constantly watched. The Gormans reported seeing humanoid figures lurking in the tree line, figures with glowing eyes that disappeared when approached. On more than one occasion, they encountered creatures that defied any biological explanation. Massive beasts with claws, faceless humanoids, and even apparitions that seemed half-formed, like something that didn't belong fully in this world. The encounters were so frequent that the family lived in a constant state of tension, never knowing what each night would bring. After 2 years of torment, the Gormans had reached their breaking point. They had invested their savings, their time, and their dreams into the ranch, only to be met with fear, loss, and confusion. They were losing cattle at an unsustainable rate. Their children were terrified to step outside after dark. Their lives had become a waking nightmare. Finally, in desperation, they reached out to the media and to scientists, hoping that someone, anyone, could help them understand what was happening on their land. What the Gormans didn't know was that their story would soon capture the attention of one of the most powerful figures in aerospace research. The strange phenomena on their ranch were about to draw in investigators, scientists, and even the United States government. And with that attention, Skinwalker Ranch would transform from a local legend into one of the most scrutinized and infamous locations in the entire world of the unexplained.
By 1996, the strange events tormenting the Gorman family had caught the attention of journalists, scientists, and even high-level figures in the aerospace industry. One man in particular was drawn to the story: Robert Bigelow. A billionaire real estate magnate and founder of Bigelow Aerospace, Bigelow had long been fascinated with the paranormal. He had already invested millions into the study of UFOs, life after death, and other mysteries that most dismissed as fringe. When he learned about the phenomena occurring at Skinwalker Ranch, he saw an opportunity, a living laboratory where the unexplained could be studied directly. Bigelow moved quickly. Through his organization, the National Institute for Discovery Science, known as NIDS, he purchased the ranch from the Gorman family. With the ink barely dry on the deal, he dispatched a team of scientists, engineers, and military veterans to the property. Their mission was simple in concept, but daunting in execution: to observe, document, and analyze whatever was happening on the ranch. For the first time, Skinwalker Ranch was not just the subject of whispered legends or local gossip. It became the focal point of a serious scientific investigation. The NIDS team arrived with cutting-edge equipment. They installed cameras on poles across the property, set up motion detectors, and monitored radio frequencies.
They used radar, night vision, and telescopes, determined to capture hard evidence of the phenomena. The team lived on site for extended periods, interviewing the Gormans about their experiences and recording their own observations. But almost immediately, they encountered the same frustration the family had described. The phenomena seemed to resist being measured. On one occasion, the team watched in shock as a cow was killed in daylight, its body mutilated with precision. Yet despite being only a few hundred yards away, they heard and saw nothing until they investigated moments later. In another incident, 3 calves were inexplicably taken from a pen. When the team followed the tracks, they found them leading into the middle of a pasture before vanishing as if the animals had been lifted into the air. Even with cameras pointed directly at the pens, no footage ever revealed what had happened. One of the most famous incidents occurred when investigators observed a glowing portal open in the night sky above the ranch. Through night vision, they described seeing a tunnel of light form, and from within it, a large, shadowy humanoid figure emerged before dropping onto the ground and running off into the darkness. They rushed to the area but found only tracks, deep, clawed footprints that led into the brush before vanishing. As if the ranch itself were a stage where something performed just out of reach of the observers, always one step ahead of the observers.
The scientists experienced anomalies with their instruments. Cameras malfunctioned without explanation. Recording devices failed at critical moments. Batteries drained instantly, as if something was feeding on the energy itself. Radiation levels spiked in certain areas, leaving some investigators with symptoms of nausea and dizziness. Yet the moment they attempted to pin down the source, the readings would vanish, as though the phenomenon refused to be cornered. Bigelow himself rarely appeared on the property, but he was deeply invested in the results. He poured resources into NIDS, determined to prove that what was happening at Skinwalker Ranch was real. Yet despite years of study, the team was left with more questions than answers. They documented hundreds of bizarre occurrences, balls of light that seemed intelligent, invisible entities that left behind physical traces, strange animal mutilations, and even sightings of enormous wolf-like creatures that vanished before their eyes. Still, the data was inconsistent, fragmented, and impossible to replicate on command. As the years passed, NIDS began to lose momentum. Critics accused the group of chasing ghosts, of producing little more than stories without solid evidence. Funding dwindled. Eventually, by the early 2000s, Bigelow shifted his focus away from the ranch. NIDS quietly disbanded, and the ranch fell back into relative obscurity. But while the world may have forgotten, the United States government had not. In fact, interest in the ranch was about to move into the highest levels of secrecy. Skinwalker Ranch was no longer just a curiosity for scientists and enthusiasts. It had become a matter of national interest. And behind closed doors, within the halls of the Pentagon, the story of Skinwalker Ranch was entering a new chapter, one that would link it directly to secret defense programs and the study of unidentified aerial phenomena. While the scientific team under Robert Bigelow struggled to capture definitive proof of the strange activity At Skinwalker Ranch, another set of eyes was quietly watching. Within the halls of the Pentagon, reports of the ranch and its bizarre phenomena had reached influential ears. Among those most intrigued was Senator Harry Reid of Nevada, a man with deep ties to both defense and aerospace industries. Reid had long held a personal fascination with the UFO question, and when he learned of the Gorman family's ordeals and Bigelow's efforts to investigate them, he saw more than a curiosity. He saw a potential matter of national security. The idea was simple yet unsettling. If strange craft, unexplained radiation spikes, and bizarre aerial phenomena were occurring on American soil, then the government needed to know whether they represented an unknown technology, a foreign adversary, or something entirely beyond human understanding. And so, in 2007, funding was quietly secured for a program hidden within the Department of Defense. It was officially called the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, but most came to know it by another name, AATIP. Through AATIP, millions of dollars were funneled into the study of unidentified aerial phenomena. And at the center of this research stood Robert Bigelow's organization. His company, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, or BASS, became the contractor tasked with investigating not only sightings of strange craft, but also the bizarre, unexplainable activity at Skinwalker Ranch itself. Suddenly, what had once been dismissed as folklore was now receiving official scrutiny at the highest levels of government. Teams were once again deployed to the ranch, this time with government backing. They brought advanced sensors, radar systems, and monitoring stations. They interviewed the Gorman family extensively and pored over the files left by NIDS investigators. Yet the same frustrations persisted. The phenomena refused to perform on command. Instruments failed, cameras captured nothing, and yet the experiences were undeniable to those present.
What troubled investigators most was the way the phenomena seemed to interact with the people who entered the ranch. It wasn't just strange lights or mutilated cattle anymore. Researchers reported experiencing acute psychological disturbances, vivid nightmares, and terrifying encounters that followed them home. Some spoke of shadowy figures appearing in their bedrooms, or of hearing voices when they were miles away from the ranch. It was as if the phenomena could attach itself to individuals, extending beyond the physical boundaries of the land. One particularly unsettling case involved a team member who returned home only to have his family plagued by strange events. His wife and children reported seeing faceless humanoid figures in their home and experiencing poltergeist activity that defied explanation. The ranch had always been mysterious, but this suggested something even more disturbing, that the phenomena were not confined by geography. They could follow, haunt, and torment those who dared to study them. Despite the secrecy of ATIP, leaks eventually brought parts of the story to light. Journalists revealed that millions of taxpayer dollars had been spent investigating UFOs, paranormal activity, and Skinwalker Ranch. For many, it was confirmation of what they had long suspected, that the government took these mysteries far more seriously than it admitted publicly. For skeptics, it was a sign of wasted funds on fringe science. But for those who had been on the ground at the ranch, there was no doubt. Something beyond our understanding was occurring there, something that even the most powerful government in the world could not explain or contain. By 2011, the ATIP program officially came to an end, at least on paper. Funding dried up and public attention shifted elsewhere. But the connection between Skinwalker Ranch and the Pentagon had been established. The ranch was no longer just the site of folklore or rancher nightmares. It had been tied directly to classified research into unidentified aerial phenomena. And though the program ended, interest in the ranch never truly disappeared. For years, the land remained under Robert Bigelow's ownership, watched over by security teams and fenced off from the public. Rumors circulated of black SUVs patrolling the perimeter, of drones buzzing over the property, and of experiments continuing behind closed gates. The ranch had become a fortress of secrecy, its mysteries still unsolved, its legends still growing. And while the government's official role had ended, the next chapter of the ranch's history was about to begin, one that would pull it out of secrecy and place it directly into the public eye.
In 2016, Skinwalker Ranch entered a new chapter when Utah real estate magnate Brandon Fugal purchased the property. Fugal, intrigued by the ranch's history and the stories that had been circulating for decades, envisioned a comprehensive scientific approach to the mystery. Unlike previous owners, Fugal sought to combine advanced technology with sustained investigation, creating an environment where researchers could observe the phenomena over long periods without interruption. Under Fugal's ownership, the ranch was transformed into a state-of-the-art research facility. Motion sensor cameras, radar systems, environmental sensors, and even drone patrols were deployed across the property. Teams of scientists, engineers, and paranormal researchers were invited to document, analyze, and study the activity, often working in shifts around the clock. For the first time, the ranch was being treated as both a laboratory and a controlled field site for phenomena that defied explanation. The reports from Fugal's teams were staggering. Animals continued to vanish in the night. Ranchers and researchers alike observed glowing orbs that moved with apparent intelligence, sometimes hovering near structures before shooting off into the sky at impossible speeds. Shadowy figures persisted, sometimes standing at the edge of camera vision, disappearing when approached. Strange sounds, unidentifiable and often terrifying, echoed across the property. Doors and equipment moved on their own, sometimes violently, leaving even seasoned investigators shaken. Some of the most unnerving incidents involved technology itself. Recording devices would fail mid-capture, batteries drained instantly. Even GPS signals and communications equipment were disrupted intermittently. Investigators began to note a pattern. The phenomena often occurred around observation equipment, almost as if aware of being monitored. In some cases, drones sent to capture activity were returned shredded or missing entirely, despite being launched under controlled conditions. Under Fugal's direction, the investigation took a more collaborative and transparent approach. Research teams documented their experiences meticulously, logging every event with time-stamped video, audio, and environmental data. Scientists from various fields, biologists, physicists, and even cryptozoologists contributed to the study. Yet despite unprecedented levels of observation, the phenomena remained resistant to conventional explanation. The ranch seemed to operate under its own set of rules, where the normal laws of physics and biology did not fully apply. The stories from the ranch under Fugel's ownership reignited public interest. Documentaries, podcasts, and news outlets began covering the ongoing research, bringing Skinwalker Ranch into mainstream awareness. Witnesses described experiences so strange that even seasoned investigators hesitated to draw conclusions. A glowing, disc-shaped object might hover silently above a pasture for hours before vanishing without a trace. Enormous wolf-like creatures would appear at night, their eyes reflecting unnatural colors, only to dissolve into the darkness moments later. Instruments recorded radiation spikes and electromagnetic anomalies in areas where nothing physically existed. One of the most remarkable aspects of the modern era is the persistence and adaptability of the phenomena. Unlike in earlier decades, the activity was now recorded repeatedly across multiple teams and verified by numerous witnesses. The ranch had become not just a site of legend, but a living, measurable anomaly, one that seemed to challenge everything we understand about reality. Yet even with this unprecedented scrutiny, answers remained elusive. The phenomena could be observed, documented, and described, but they could not be fully explained. There were patterns, certainly, but no predictable cause. Scientists often left the property frustrated, bewildered, and at times deeply unnerved. The land seemed to defy conventional logic, as if reality itself were thinner here, bending to rules unknown. Under Fugel's guidance, Skinwalker Ranch continues to be a focal point of research into the unexplained. The property remains heavily secured, and while much of the data remains confidential, the ongoing investigations demonstrate a serious commitment to understanding the anomalies. Unlike prior eras of investigation, marked by fear, speculation, and fragmented data, the modern approach blends rigorous science with open acknowledgement of the unknown. The ranch, once a quiet and isolated property with a dark reputation, is now recognized as one of the most studied paranormal sites in the world. Its mysteries persist, from glowing orbs and mutilated livestock to shadow figures and unexplained portals. Under Brandon Fugel, Skinwalker Ranch has become a bridge between legend and science, a place where centuries of folklore intersect with modern investigation. And yet, no matter how much is recorded, analyzed, or theorized, the property continues to defy comprehension, leaving researchers and the public alike to ask the same question: what is really happening at Skinwalker Ranch?
Skinwalker Ranch is unlike any other site of paranormal investigation because it defies categorization. Unlike a location that hosts only UFO sightings or only cryptid encounters, the ranch exhibits a wide spectrum of unexplained phenomena. For decades, scientists, researchers, and eyewitnesses have documented activity that spans multiple disciplines: biology, physics, and even psychology. Each category of observation raises more questions than answers, leaving the property shrouded in mystery. One of the most consistent patterns observed is the presence of aerial anomalies. Glowing orbs, disc-shaped craft, and unexplained lights have been recorded in the sky above the ranch for generations. These lights often behave in ways that defy conventional physics. They accelerate instantly, hover without propulsion, and change color or shape in midair. Radar systems sometimes detect objects with no known material signature. The intelligence behind these objects has been debated. Some researchers argue that they are not simply lights, but conscious entities capable of observing, reacting, and even manipulating the environment. Equally puzzling are the reports of terrestrial anomalies. Cattle mutilations remain one of the most documented aspects of the ranch. Calves and adult cattle are frequently found dead under conditions that suggest surgical precision. Organs are removed without blood spilling, and footprints or drag marks are often absent. Some researchers speculate that this indicates the presence of advanced technology or unknown predators. Others suggest that it could be evidence of interdimensional activity, a theory bolstered by reports of glowing portals appearing in fields during these incidents. Cryptid sightings have also been persistent. The ranch has yielded multiple reports of enormous wolf-like creatures, humanoid figures, and entities that do not match any known species. Witnesses describe these creatures as unusually large, sometimes walking upright or exhibiting intelligence beyond that of normal animals. They often appear at night, vanish into thin air, and resist conventional attempts at deterrence or capture. Some investigators believe these beings may be linked to the Navajo legend of skinwalkers, while others consider them a separate biological or dimensional phenomenon. Psychological and physical effects on humans form another layer of the mystery. Investigators and ranchers frequently report disorientation, intense fear, and sudden illnesses while on the property. Some describe feelings of being watched, hallucinations, or a sense of presence that cannot be explained by environmental factors. In some cases, these effects continue even after leaving the ranch, suggesting that the phenomena may interact with human consciousness in ways not yet understood.
Theories attempting to explain the ranch's mysteries range widely. Ufologists argue that the ranch may be a hotspot for extraterrestrial observation, a permanent monitoring site for unknown craft. Others propose that the phenomena are interdimensional in nature, suggesting that Skinwalker Ranch sits at a weak point in the fabric of reality, a portal between worlds. Some scientists consider electromagnetic anomalies as the root cause, speculating that unusual radiation patterns could produce hallucinations, affect animal behavior, or even generate unexplained aerial phenomena. Paranormal enthusiasts often return to the Skinwalker legend, proposing that the events are the continuation of a centuries-old curse tied to shape-shifting witches. Despite decades of investigation, no single theory fully accounts for the breadth of activity observed on the ranch. It is possible, even likely, that multiple phenomena converge here, interacting in unpredictable ways. A glowing orb may be linked to a cryptid sighting. A sudden cattle death may coincide with a localized electromagnetic spike. The property itself appears to be a dynamic system of anomalies, resistant to reductionist explanations. What is undeniable is that Skinwalker Ranch continues to challenge the boundaries of human understanding. Every new piece of data, every recorded event only deepens the mystery. Scientists, investigators, and enthusiasts are forced to confront the possibility that there are aspects of reality we do not yet comprehend, and that Skinwalker Ranch may be one of the few places where those aspects manifest visibly. As researchers continue to document the phenomena, one thing becomes clear: the ranch is not static. The activity evolves, adapts, and sometimes seems aware of observation. Instruments fail, anomalies shift location, and events occur that cannot be replicated. Skinwalker Ranch, in essence, is a living enigma, a place where science, folklore, and the unknown collide, and where every answer only leads to more questions. No matter the theory, the conclusion is the same. Skinwalker Ranch is a place where the impossible becomes reality.
It is a site where legends are not just stories, where folklore and science intersect, and where reality itself seems to bend. Those who study it, live on it, or simply hear its stories are left with a profound sense of awe, fear, and wonder. A reminder that the universe is far stranger than most of us can imagine.
Over the decades, Skinwalker Ranch has accumulated a staggering number of documented incidents, each more unsettling than the last. Witness accounts, whether from the Gorman family, NIDS investigators, or modern research teams under Brandon Fugel, paint a consistent picture of a place where the ordinary laws of nature do not apply. While the events vary in type and intensity, a common thread runs through them all. They are impossible to fully explain. One of the earliest and most infamous accounts comes from the Gorman family. During their tenure in the 1990s, they reported seeing enormous wolf-like creatures that appeared impervious to bullets. These creatures were described as being 3 times the size of normal wolves, with glowing eyes and extraordinary speed. In one chilling encounter, a wolf lunged at a calf. Despite multiple point-blank gunshots, the animal simply let go, turned, and disappeared into the darkness without leaving a trace. The family's fear escalated as they discovered mutilated cattle and witnessed glowing orbs hovering over their property at night, moving with apparent intelligence. NIDS investigators who arrived shortly after the Gormans vacated the property documented similar phenomena. Motion sensor cameras captured bright orbs that moved erratically across pastures, sometimes splitting into multiple lights before vanishing entirely. Night vision footage revealed shadowy humanoid figures at the tree line. Radar and magnetic sensors recorded spikes in electromagnetic fields, often coinciding with the appearance of unidentified aerial phenomena. Investigators also recorded instances of objects physically moving on the ranch without human contact, doors slamming, tools relocated, and heavy machinery displaced mysteriously. In the modern era under Brandon Fugel, the ranch continued to produce inexplicable events. Researchers reported orbs that entered buildings, objects that materialized seemingly out of nowhere, and animal attacks that defied natural behavior. In one account, a research drone was launched to observe cattle movement. Minutes later, the drone's signal was lost, and it was later found shredded on the ground, though no human or animal could have caused the damage. Other team members described hearing voices and seeing figures that did not exist on any camera feed, a phenomenon that challenged both physical and psychological understanding. Some incidents have been corroborated by multiple witnesses simultaneously. In one instance, 2 investigators observed a glowing disc-shaped object hover above a field. While one researcher attempted to track it with a camera, the other saw a shadowy figure emerge from a nearby tree line, its size and movements unlike any known animal. The figure vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind only unusual footprints that abruptly ended. Simultaneous accounts like this, combined with sensor readings, provide some of the strongest evidence that the phenomena are not hallucinations or misinterpretations.
Cattle mutilations remain a central and chilling aspect of the ranch's history. Researchers found livestock missing entirely or discovered dead animals with precise organ removal, often without a drop of blood spilled. These incidents have been recorded repeatedly across multiple decades and ownerships, yet no conventional explanation has ever sufficed.
Local ranchers who lived near the property have reported similar occurrences, further extending the pattern of unexplained animal deaths beyond the ranch itself. Witness accounts also include extraordinary reports of human interaction. Investigators and ranchers have described experiences of intense fear, paralysis, or sudden sickness during encounters with the phenomena. Some have reported being followed by entities off the property, hearing voices, or seeing shadowy figures at home long after leaving the ranch. These accounts suggest that the phenomena may interact with human consciousness, extending their influence beyond the physical limits of the land. Perhaps most unsettling are the reports of portals or interdimensional anomalies. Multiple eyewitnesses describe seeing shimmering tubular lights in the night sky, sometimes large enough for human-sized figures to pass through. Creatures have been observed emerging from these portals, moving with unnatural agility and vanishing before they can be approached. These accounts, combined with unusual radar readings and unexplained environmental anomalies, suggest that Skinwalker Ranch may act as a junction point between dimensions or realities, though the exact nature of this connection remains unknown. Taken together, these documented incidents create a pattern that is impossible to ignore. Skinwalker Ranch is not simply the site of isolated occurrences. It is a place where multiple, overlapping anomalies converge. UFO sightings, cryptid encounters, animal mutilations, human psychological effects, and interdimensional phenomena all appear to coexist on the property, each reinforcing the other. The ranch has become, in essence, a living laboratory of the inexplicable. Despite decades of observation, the phenomena continue to resist full explanation. Cameras fail, instruments malfunction, and events occur in ways that defy logic. Yet the consistency of witness accounts across generations suggests that the ranch is indeed a place where the impossible becomes real. For those who experience it firsthand, the property is both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only observed, recorded, and respected.
Skinwalker Ranch has never been just a private property or a site of isolated anomalies. Over the years, its story has permeated popular culture, capturing the imagination of researchers, journalists, and the general public alike. Its influence extends across books, documentaries, television series, podcasts, and online discussions, making it one of the most recognizable paranormal hotspots in the world. The first major exposure came with the publication of investigative books detailing the Gorman family's experiences. Authors painstakingly compiled interviews, reports, and historical accounts, presenting a comprehensive look at the ranch's mysteries. These works introduced Skinwalker Ranch to a wider audience, framing it as a unique intersection of folklore, science, and the unexplained. Readers were drawn not only to the dramatic stories of glowing orbs and enormous wolf-like creatures, but also to the meticulous documentation that lent credibility to the accounts. Television soon followed. Series such as The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch brought the property into living rooms around the world. Viewers were given unprecedented access to the ranch, watching as modern investigators deployed drones, sensors, and night vision cameras to capture evidence. These programs blended suspenseful storytelling with scientific observation,
creating a narrative that appealed both to skeptics and believers. The visual medium added a layer of immediacy. Glowing orbs flickering across a dark field, mysterious figures caught on infrared cameras, and unexplained lights darting through the night sky brought the legends to life in ways that words alone could not. Podcasts, online forums, and social media have also played a significant role in the ranch's cultural impact. Amateur investigators and enthusiasts dissect footage, analyze reports, and debate theories. Online communities share first-hand accounts of nearby sightings, discuss the significance of historical Native American legends, and speculate about potential interdimensional activity. The digital age has allowed Skinwalker Ranch to transcend its physical location, becoming a phenomenon that exists both on the land itself and within the collective imagination of a global audience. The ranch has also influenced broader conversations about government disclosure and scientific investigation of the unknown. The involvement of Robert Bigelow, AAITP, and BAAS provided a rare link between paranormal events and official government interest. For many, this connection validated the seriousness of the phenomena, raising questions about what governments know and why certain locations are considered sensitive or off-limits. Media coverage of these programs has helped fuel public fascination, inspiring a generation of UFO researchers, cryptozoologists, and paranormal enthusiasts to study the unexplained with renewed vigor.
Culturally, Skinwalker Ranch has become a symbol of the unknown. It represents humanity's desire to confront phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality. Its combination of folklore, government involvement, and first-hand accounts creates a narrative that is at once terrifying and compelling. The ranch serves as a focal point for discussions about UFOs, cryptids, paranormal activity, and even interdimensional theories, bridging the gap between scientific curiosity and speculative storytelling. The legend of Skinwalker Ranch continues to grow with each new investigation. As documentaries air, books are published, and social media communities expand, the property remains at the center of a modern mythos, one where glowing orbs, shadowy figures, and mysterious cattle deaths are not just local anecdotes, but a part of a global conversation about the limits of human knowledge. Researchers and enthusiasts alike are drawn to the ranch, eager to witness what others have only described in words or captured fleetingly on video. In the end, the cultural impact of Skinwalker Ranch lies not only in the events themselves, but in how those events resonate with people. The ranch taps into deep-seated fears, curiosity, and wonder, reminding us that there are still places in the world where the unexplained is undeniable. Its story continues to inspire new investigations, challenge skeptics, and invite the public to ask questions about the nature of reality. Skinwalker Ranch is no longer just land in Utah. It is a phenomenon that occupies the intersection of science, folklore, and imagination, a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown.
After decades of investigation, documentation, and speculation, Skinwalker Ranch remains as enigmatic as ever. From the earliest accounts of the Gorman family to the modern era under Brandon Fugel, the property has consistently defied explanation. Lights that move against the wind, animals that vanish or appear mutilated, shadowy figures that seem to watch without being seen. These phenomena continue to challenge our understanding of the natural world. One of the most striking aspects of Skinwalker Ranch is its resistance to conventional study. Generations of witnesses, from ranchers to scientists, have tried to capture, record, or analyze the anomalies, yet the phenomena persist beyond measurement. Cameras fail at crucial moments. Sensors record spikes that cannot be traced. Instruments malfunction without cause. It is as if the ranch itself operates according to its own rules, indifferent to human attempts at understanding. Despite decades of observation, no single theory fully accounts for the range of activity. UFO enthusiasts point to extraterrestrial involvement. Cryptozoologists emphasize unknown creatures. Paranormal investigators reference Native American legends of skinwalkers and curses. Scientists explore electromagnetic anomalies and interdimensional hypotheses. Each perspective captures part of the picture, yet none can explain it in its entirety. The ranch seems to exist in a space where multiple realities intersect, where folklore, physics, and consciousness overlap in ways we have yet to comprehend. Perhaps the most enduring mystery of Skinwalker Ranch is its effect on those who enter it. Ranchers, investigators, and researchers alike report an almost palpable sense of being watched, followed, or influenced by forces beyond understanding. Many leave the property profoundly changed, carrying experiences that defy explanation and challenge their perception of reality. Some continue to study it, while others leave, vowing never to return. The ranch is not just a location, it is an experience, one that confronts humans with the limits of their knowledge and the fragility of their assumptions. Over the years, Skinwalker Ranch has become a symbol of the unknown. It reminds us that even in an age of advanced science and global connectivity, there are places where mysteries persist. It demonstrates that the universe may be far stranger than we imagine, filled with phenomena that cannot be neatly categorized or dismissed. And it continues to captivate the imagination of the public, inspiring books, documentaries, and research programs aimed at understanding what defies understanding. As investigators continue to explore the ranch, one thing remains clear. Skinwalker Ranch is not merely a historical curiosity or a case study in paranormal lore. It is a living enigma. It challenges our assumptions, tests our science, and invites us to confront the unknown. Every glowing orb, every shadowy figure, every mutilated animal is a reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved easily. They are meant to be witnessed, studied, and respected. In the end, Skinwalker Ranch stands as a testament to the limits of human knowledge. It is a place where folklore and science meet, where reality bends, and where the impossible becomes tangible. It reminds us that even in a world dominated by reason and technology, there are still corners of the earth that resist explanation, that hold secrets beyond our grasp. For those who dare to enter, Skinwalker Ranch is more than land. It is a doorway to questions, to experiences, and to phenomena that challenge everything we think we know. And as long as people continue to investigate, observe, and experience the ranch, its mysteries will endure, waiting for the next generation of seekers to confront the unknown and to ask the same haunting question that has echoed across decades: what really happens?
If you enjoyed today's video, we thank you very much. Please like and subscribe to Rare Breed Chronicles. And let's dive into another story
that defies the ordinary.